Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for at least some of you. We are ready to get started on meeting number 6. I call it the recipe for success. Well, it worked for me, and so I want to talk about kind of just the general overview of what worked for me, and also give you kind of the story of my test taking experience. It had a very unique twist to it, which was interesting. So yeah, come on in. We'll get started here. I have some really exciting stuff to talk about this morning. So come on in. Just always feel free to introduce yourself. Obviously, you know I'm Joseph, probably, maybe. But yes, drop in the chat your questions today. I'll be happy to answer them pertaining to certifications. But in the meantime, before you have any questions, feel free to. Okay. I've been practicing your name. Now, let me see if I can get this right. It's Michele, something like that. Is that about right? I obviously don't speak Italian, but I practiced it quite a number of times. I'm sure it still needs some perfection, but I know Michele and Alessandro are from Italy, and unfortunately, you all have had a really bad. Italy has had a really bad bout with the whole coronavirus, COVID, whatever you want to call it. So hopefully you guys have escaped that. Hey, Jim, welcome. Come on in. Hopefully we all have escaped this virus that's going around. So does not sound good, but hopefully everything will work out in the long run. So, wow, come on in. Very good. Hey, I'm sure it's I'm sure the way I pronounce your name, Michele, is not 100%, but hey, with an English accent, maybe it's passable. What can you say? All right. Very good. So come on in. This is wonderful having you all here. Oh yes, working safely from home. It's really interesting. If you think about it, it's a little side tangent here. Probably even 30 years ago, this whole working from home thing would not have been possible. So now it is possible. Now we do it, and hopefully it will really prevent the spread of this illness significantly. So that would be good. Okay, so let's jump over here and we can get into what we're going to be talking about here this morning. All right, so first, I almost would say most importantly, let's talk about those who have passed the test. Pavlo, I found out Jay this morning passed, and of course I passed the JavaScript developer test. But we are making progress in getting people certified. So that makes me really happy. I'm excited to see this progress and these results. I'm still waiting on some more people. We got till the end of the month, but we just got to get these tests passed because ultimately, the end of the month is probably not a hard deadline, just so we're aware. But we got to get the tests done. We got to get them taken. Otherwise, the problem is we delayed another month. And the problem is as we've had a concentrated time of study, then we keep delaying it after this time of study, we're going to start forgetting everything that we've learned. Well, at least a portion of it. And that portion we might have been passing score right now, but as we wait, as we no longer study for this is kind of the brain material atrophies that we had put in there for this test. We might slip underneath the passing score. So even just a little bit can make a big difference. So my suggestion is keep going. Hey, eJazz, come on in. Welcome. My suggestion is keep going, keep studying, don't let up. Even if your test is March 31st, March 31st is an arbitrary deadline, but you got to do it. Simply because otherwise it might not happen. So I want to make sure that this happens for you. All right. Want to again reiterate that the project guide videos are on YouTube. In fact, we have the last couple steps are being uploaded, or at least finalized, but literally we have 40 or 50 videos up here on YouTube now about regarding the project guide. And so this is really important that if you are looking to become associate developer certified, that you get in there and that you watch these videos, that you work through the project guide PDF. This is really important. And my goal is again to from maybe a more senior developer perspective to give you insight as far as what you do, how you do this, and also the why. Because again, I can say, hey, build this piece out, and here's the code you need to do, and here is the instructions on how to do this. But here's the problem. It doesn't teach you actually almost anything. I mean, yeah, it tells you, okay, here's the code to be able to do this in this one situation. But what I want you to have a good, solid foundation is how you can tomorrow build something similar to it. How you can the next week take these ideas that we're working through, pull these different areas out of the Magento core, and understand how you can actually get it done. So that's what I'm talking about is really, really critical. And so my goal is through the project guide PDF, through the actual videos on YouTube as well, and also through the Git repository on GitLab that I've pulled together, through these tools, and they're all free, by the way. This is going to give you a good, solid understanding of what it takes to become Magento Associate Developer Certified. So that's why I put that out, and it's really, really important. Again, it's free, so can't go wrong by at least working through. It's going to take some time. Don't get me wrong. It's going to take some time to do this, but it's free. So yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Here is what we have so far come to on this T-shirt. Okay. So here's my idea on the T-shirt, just so everyone's aware. Again, for the top participants, the top scoring participants in each category, you're gonna get a free T-shirt. So the top 2 participants are gonna get a free T-shirt. So I've gone back and forth on this. I want this T-shirt to be something that you want to wear. It's not advertising material for SwiftOtter or anything else. This is a T-shirt that you are going to want to wear. It's going to be a very comfortable, very nice T-shirt as well. So we're still refining the text. There's some updates that we're making there, but I thought I'd give everyone here a sneak peek as far as what it looks like. This shirt that you're going to have, and I think you're going to be so proud of it. You should be, because you participated in this challenge. You became certified as a result, and I'm really excited about this. So it's probably going to change a little bit past here, but this is what we're looking at. So all the more reason to get certified. Let's get your name on that list because I want to send you a T-shirt. All right. So another thing that I've built out recently is all of our practice tests now have timing. So as you were taking a practice test, here's an example question. You're going to have a total time left, just like on the Magento test. Ours are formatted a little bit nicer, but hey, what can I say? My goal is that this is actually a nicer test-taking experience than is on the real test. But we have 90 seconds per question that's tallied up. So the practice tests none of them are like 60 questions. So it's 90 seconds times the number of questions. So hour and 4 minutes left, whatever. I don't know if it's hour and 5 minutes, whatever the total was. But then I also put in time per question. So you can see, even as you go back, okay, I spent X number of time on this question. Now, even better is at the end of the test, it gives you the average time per question. And that's what I think is really critical. So you can see how am I doing against the 90-second clock, 90-second per question clock, but also how am I doing on an average per question. If your per question average is, say, a minute and 20 seconds, you probably need to do some more study. Maybe you're having trouble understanding the questions, and maybe you need to work on, like, for example, your English comprehension. Whatever it is, it's a great tool for diagnosis. And so, if you do, and I'm not pushing this on anybody, but if you do want to take a practice test, I just wanted to make you aware that this question timing is now available. And I think it's going to be really, really helpful for this assessment. The other thing I've also done is I have hidden the questions and the answers that you got right or wrong by default. Again, there's a lot of people that go through and try to memorize the questions. And I do my very best to tell them that's not going to happen. But now it's a checkbox. Yes, I do want to see these questions because I am just about to take the test and I want to review some of these final answers. And so I'll actually be talking about in just a couple of minutes as far as how I went through and studied in this whole process of becoming JavaScript developer certified. All right, so I guess if there's any questions here, kind of about what we've talked about thus far, I'm gonna be happy to answer those. But I will also be jumping into how I did it. And this is, my goal here is to give you some, these statistics about time are shown at the end of the test. So, well, the time left is not shown at the end of the test, because ultimately I was thinking, there's really not much reason to know how much time you have left there at the very end of the test, like on your scorecard. But what you do need to know is your average time per question. That's, I think, the most important statistic to know. And I'll be kind of refining this as time goes on, but for right now, the most important statistic is your time per question. Okay, so I wanted to talk about how I did it. And kind of as a way to, is a little bit of an encouragement, because my story here is I am not a front-end developer. Well, let me put it this way. I was working on a project on a website that we were doing the other day, and I could get this project okay. It looked pretty decent, but there was just a couple of problems I could not figure out. And I didn't want to take a whole bunch of time. Obviously, I was on the clock billing out for that, so I moved it over to somebody who could actually handle that a lot faster, some of those last few problems. But I'm not a front-end developer. I enjoy parts of it. In fact, I've actually been really enjoying getting into Vue.js. That's with all of our practice tests, the whole practice test part of that is written in Vue. So I've really enjoyed that, but I'm just not a front-end developer. And JavaScript was the one, I think it's even in some of my videos, I've said I am not taking JavaScript. I have no interest in taking JavaScript. I've gotten a little ways down this road, down the road of JavaScript, because I can build UI components, I can, work on the checkout, that sort of thing. But I'm not a fan of JavaScript. But when we started this certification challenge, my thought was, wait, that is an area that I really don't care for. This is an area that's not particularly interesting to me. So maybe that's an area that I need to dig into. Maybe that's an area that I need to work through. And so I decided to get into this and work through it. So how did I do that? Hey, Jay, welcome. I think, if I remember correctly, you're one of the ones that passed the test here recently. So congratulations. Absolutely congratulations on passing the associate developer test. So, and welcome. Come on in. So anyways, talking about how I did it. So this was one of those areas, again, that I didn't want to get into. I didn't feel like it. But as I think you've heard me say in previous conversations, when there's an area of a test, and in particular an area of a test that we don't feel like digging into, it feels like it's unknown, I don't know about this, and it seems scary to me, that means we need to get into it. That means we need to understand this all the better. And that's why I decided on this one. I did, and it's not, I don't know the correct term for this. It's not like checking my ego, but it's like checking this doubt that I have. You have to just put this doubt away, say, I can do it. And so here's what I did. Basically, every day, I came in here and I read through the study guide. So again, like we talked about in the first part, 4 times a week, 15 minutes per time. That's literally all it was. 4 times a week, 15 minutes per time. Sometimes it was a little bit more than that. And I know it's also, I'm not saying for everyone this is going to work in this particular facet, because some have a little bit less experience with some of these customizations, and maybe some have more. Maybe you only need 5 minutes a day, that sort of thing. So you have to gauge that. How fast are you making progress, and then how comfortable do you now feel with the section that you just worked through? So of course, yes, I went through our study guide. You might say it was dogfooding, and actually it was a really interesting experience as a side note, because I have written all the other study guides. This is the only study guide that I have not written. And so I was forced to go through this just like you. And because I went on to write a study guide, I'm in there, I'm working through each section. It seems like a little bit of a different mindset. And I learned a lot out of this, and wrote down some questions, some improvements that I would desire to make to our study guides as a result of some of my findings here. And the biggest one is this practical experience. So you can read this section. Okay, full list of custom bindings. You can find the list here. We can go to that. Refer to the dev docs. So there's definitely a number of areas that this is pointing out. But let's look at this one. So some of the bindings can be used as attributes or nodes. Describe, be sure to familiarize yourself. So anytime you see things like this, or refer to the dev docs, it's meaning, hey, you need to go out and do something with this. You need to go actually put this into practice. And so what I found was really, really, really helpful was I built out, I stood up a sample website, installed all of them, and I think I installed the Magento sample data in there. I created a sample controller. Let's see here. Here we go. I created a sample controller, and I literally started rendering stuff. So I read about this section, and I think this one here in particular was about scopes. I've never dealt with scopes before. In fact, well, I have tried to in a couple of times in the past, but I've had to actually pass it off to our really great front-end developer. And I just had a hard time wrapping my head around it. But I thought, you know, this is my chance to fully understand how the scoping stuff works. And so I said, okay, I'm going to figure this out. So I read through this section, and then let's see, where was that? I wrote out my, I wrote an example of this. So we have our customer section, but then I did this scope args request child test component. And I'm not going to get too deep into how this all works, but yeah, so literally, so I figured out how we could make this work. And I think it was here that I actually, it's actually a week or two ago. Oh, no. Okay, so here's the point. How can I inject a component into a UI component into another area of the system? So let's say, for example, this is checkout config, or not the checkout UI component rendering. So it's obviously done on our XML file. We have our arguments, our customer section, and we have our just a customer section here. I think, yeah, it's extending the customer data, but it's just basically rendering out some information that I loaded in from our sections.xml. So again, that was another area. I've never dealt with anything like that. In fact, what I always do is I just write a REST API request. But this is actually, I think it's more convenient to use the Magento section. So I thought that was really fascinating and interesting as I got into that part of it. So, so I have this UI component rendered out here, but how could I actually embed another UI component inside that? Well, that happens with the scope tag. No, one second here. You, if possible, share this project with us. Would help to learn more. So we'll see. I might actually do that. The problem is it is so raw. I can show you my code. It is literally just basic values in here. So I'm not sure exactly how valuable it would be to you at this point because there's no comments, there's no explanation. It's just literally throwing just random code at the wall here. But it was really helpful for me in this because I was able to dig in and get a picture. Oh, hello. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name right here. Jawad. Would that be correct? So feel free to let me know if that's not. So anyways, I worked through this scope, and it probably took me about an hour of time. And so I was actually a little nervous. I was like, wow, this is taking me a long time to get this done. But let's see here. Yeah, so basically what I figured out was I could embed this component in, so I have a customer section, which was rendered out here. So we have this customer section UI component, but customer section.test component. And in our scope, I request child test component. So request child means it takes the parent UI component and add a dot, and then here's the child test child component. So that was a huge light bulb moment for me. And it was a feeling of, I would say, liberation, because I was like, I have never worked with scopes before. It just seemed like this voodoo magic Greek, I don't know, whatever. I mean, I could not figure out what it was. I did not understand it. But when I took the time, said, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to create an example of this. And then the cool thing is now I have this example for me. And so I can get in there and I can, if I need to do this again, I can easily figure out how to do this again. So that's where I'm saying it was so incredibly powerful. When the moment I got this to work, I was like, wow. And it was one of those things that got checked off my list of things I did not know or things that seemed really too difficult to know. So that's my challenge on this part of it, simply because I want to make sure that if there is any part of this test that you are unsure of, any part of this test that you have these questions about or these doubts, stop, take a moment, and dig in. Even if you need to delay your test a couple of days, that's fine. But take a few moments to dig in and make sure you have a good understanding here. All right, so that was the biggest thing I wanted to talk about. Of course, I reviewed I reviewed some of these paths here. Let's see. So anytime I could. There we go. PHP Storm is still waking up this morning. I'm sure you can relate. Sometimes it's a little bit cranky in the mornings. Here, like things like this, it's like, man, this is really complex. But I found that by getting into, and I can show you, getting in here, finding that file, for example, let's see here, knockout. Well, it'll probably take a little too long to go find it. I don't want to waste y'all's time. Static. Let's see here. That was in. Okay. I wish here. Let's see here. Lib knockout bindings. Okay, I'm actually having trouble finding it at this very moment. Oh well. Nope, it's not in there. Okay, I'm having trouble finding it. Anyways, go through and find these files. Actually, here's what I can do. Refresh that. It bugs me whenever I can't find something. I got to figure it out. So here's scope.js. So I'm finding it, going to the network tab, finding it there. Magento web. Oh, I missed that. So it's under Magento UI. Lib. There we go. You can use that to help filter it down. Lib knockout bindings, and there's a whole bunch of bindings in here. By the way, it's really good to familiarize yourself with those bindings. If you're taking the JavaScript developer test, or if you're not, it still is interesting to learn about. Here it is. So set breakpoints in there, refresh the page, and work through that. And that's literally what I had to do. So this is really, really helpful. Great question, Ejaz. We will talk about that here in just a little bit, in a few minutes. So we'll push that question off to the end, and I'll be happy to give you as good of an explanation as I possibly can about SearchCriteriaBuilder. All right, so with that, it came up to March 2nd. So I have the test scheduled for March 3rd, 50 minutes a day, 4 times a week. On March 2nd, I was like, I am not ready to take this test. I just felt totally not ready. So what I ended up doing was I logged into this the test criteria center, or to the test center, and Criterion, I think is the name of it. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go reschedule this test. So I went in, logged in, clicked the reschedule button, chose the new time, and so it was like I was gonna push it out for a couple of weeks. And I was excited that I was able to get that done. Press the submit button, and all of a sudden I get to see a credit card paywall. It says, please put in your credit card, pay $50. And if you're like me, $50 to reschedule a test is not something that I feel like doing, unless I have the coronavirus or something. I don't know. At that point, yeah, it would probably be worth it, but otherwise I'm not spending 50 of my hard-earned dollars in order to be able to reschedule this dumb test. Because I felt like I still had some confidence. Oh, let me back up. About 2 weeks before I took the test, I went through the practice test. I got an 81%, but I did not look at a single one of those answers. And that's my big suggestion. That's actually why I implemented that little checkbox on the practice test at the very end. Yes, I want to see these answers, because I realized, hey, wait, these answers have no value, no benefit to me at this moment in my study. I just want to see how am I doing? Where am I at in taking this test? So answers really. That was one thing that was really fascinating to me. The answers have a lot less value to me than I really thought they ever did. And so trying to tone them back a little bit, making sure that the test is less about answers as opposed to more about the score, where I'm currently at, how I'm currently doing. I have a number of changes I hope to actually build out today or next Saturday in relation to that too. So March 2nd, I was like, okay, we're not going to be able to move this test off. You got me, Magento. We are going to take this test tomorrow, March 3rd. So what I decided is I was going to quit work a little bit early. I ended up studying. I I think I tried rescheduling it was like 7:15 on Monday, March 2nd. My test was going to be for 8, March 3rd. So it was more than 24 hours in their mind. It wasn't, but they thought it was. So I studied then. I studied in the evening on March 2nd. Just again, reading through the study guide, everything I could there. I wasn't writing any code at that point. It was just trying to review stuff, trying to remember stuff, making sure that it was as much the forefront of my mind as possible. March 3 rolls around. I wake up early. I think it was like 5 o'clock that morning. I normally wake up just a little bit later than that. And I woke up early. Oh, no, that was 4:30 or 4:45. And so I got down to my computer as quickly as I possibly could, had a decent breakfast. I did end up drinking a little bit of an energy drink just to help clear the cobwebs out of my mind faster. I got down here and I literally started studying. Again, continuing to reread the study guide, review my code that I'd written, trying to bring everything to the forefront. At that point, let's see. So that I think my test was at 8. So around 7:30, 7:45, I got my area configured. So literally, my wife has this little table. It's like about this big that that she does like her sewing on, and so I use that. I set that up right here. I put my laptop on it. Got the webcam right here. I got that all set, ready to go, and I had this. I got connected. Tuesdays when they come around to collect our garbage, and so it was a good opportunity to go out and stretch, get the cobwebs out of my mind. I actually started feeling a little bit nervous. And I'll put it this way, because it was a little bit of pressure. I knew that I had to pass this test, because like my goal is to be the model in this, to lead by example here. And how would that be if I failed? And it really, I was beginning to feel some stress about that. Like, what happens if I fail this test? So going outside, it was really helpful for me to get some fresh air, to try to relax just a little bit, because I was definitely starting to get a little stressed. But again, I tried to do what I know about stress management, trying to keep those stress levels down, because I know as I get stressed, it kind of shuts down my thinking a little bit. So I want to be at the very, very top of my game for thinking. So I get in here. I say, okay, we're going to log in. We are going to begin this process. Okay, it was about like 7:50, 7:55. I think it became available at 7:55 to start taking the test. So I log in over here, and I start having problems right out of the gate. The first problem was it wouldn't recognize my biometric signature, and I personally, basically what this biometric signature is you first take a picture of yourself, and you look in the webcam, you take a picture of yourself smiling or whatever. And then the second part of that is you have to type your name in the keyboard. Type your name in. Well, supposedly it's like they've identified the signature as far as how you type your keys. And well, for crying out loud, I last entered my name in a year ago. None of us are the same, and I had to, I don't know how many attempts. It probably took me 6 or more attempts to try to get my name entered correctly. And I'm just typing my name, Joseph Maxwell. I'm sorry, that was incorrect. Your biometric profile did not match. Joseph Maxwell. Come on. It really doesn't matter. So that was definitely one thing that was frustrating. So then I get logged in, and the screen turns blank white. So I've never had that before. So I try contacting their support. I start the test taking over. I get in there, and I finally get in after I think a couple of tries. And because I say this just because to prepare you, this was really weird for me because I've never had any troubles taking tests at home ever before. Because what was really weird was then it actually happened like 4 or 5 times. The webcam supposedly quit on them. So it was still working, I think, from my perspective, but they were stopped receiving video feeds. So it would then interrupt my test taking. And all that, it kind of added up to be a little bit of a challenge because I'm trying to focus on taking this test, but now we're having technical difficulties where they can't see my screen. So at that point, I was thinking, well, maybe I just need to go into the test center. And so just to keep in mind that there is a possibility of these technical difficulties. My internet connection was good. I shut down everything I could possibly think of here in the house that would have been taking a bandwidth. I tried Chrome. I think I literally went from Chrome, Firefox, Safari, my Windows virtual machine back to Chrome. And I'm guessing something was wrong with my internet that day. So I think there's a short story of that is to make sure you have good internet connection. Do a speed test before that. I don't think I rebooted my computer, which would have probably been a good idea if there was other processes or something on my computer that were taking up CPU or network bandwidth coming out of my computer. So anyways, I got in, and I would say about 2/3 of the questions were fairly easy. Oh yeah, good question there, Jawed. They were very good to work with in that way. I think they did give me extra time. I ended up using it all. So they did give me some extra time, but I'm not really sure like how much came from like when the timer was stopped versus when it was going. So I'm not 100% sure on that. So, but yes, they were very good. I think it was an hour and a half to take the test. Maybe it could have been even a little bit more than that. So anyways, I got in there, was working through these questions. I would say about 2/3 of them I knew pretty much right off the top of my head, which was really comforting. By the time I got to the end of the first round, so again, I talked about the 3 rounds, the triage, the deep dive, and the review. So on the first time on this triage round, by the time I got to the end of that, I had about 20 questions marked. And some of them were just really, really, really difficult questions. Things pertaining to, I'm just trying to remember an example. I think one of those, so like some of them were like related to the checkout, of course. And some of the answers just seemed really similar. And so that was, of course, those are the challenging ones. And there was a couple I just had no clue, absolutely no clue about. And I was a little bit worried about those. Like, how many of these are we going to have? So once I got through the first round, I started then going to deep dive. I found a couple of questions on there that seemed to have at least hints or clues that would help me answer other questions. And so that's one thing to really keep in mind as you're going through this test. So not only are you wanting to be thinking and focus on this, but you also want to be looking and saying, okay, what is this question talking about? And can I apply what I'm reading in this question anywhere else? Because it might help you weed out some answers. Magento works really hard to make sure that these questions don't answer other questions, but there's a really good chance you're going to find at least a couple of questions on there that'll have hints or suggestions toward other answers. That'll help you maybe filter some things out. So keep your eyes and ears open for that, because that can be really, really helpful. And that's actually what I did as well. I think there was particularly, there were 2 questions that I was able to borrow information from other questions to help me answer. So once I got through those, and I felt, some of them was just rereading it a couple of times to help me understand what was going on here. A couple of them I still had no clue on, but I just this is my best guess. I'm going to do my very, very best guess here, and we'll see what happens. And then there was a couple, there's always one or two that I question. Is this correct or not? I always would have to defer because I have no say in the test right then. So a couple I did have to defer on. So I got through that round. I was like, I think we're feeling better now. This is seeming to be going okay. So then I went through the final round, and as always, I changed my answer on 2 to 3 questions. It's always how it works, and that's what I think is really good. I have no clue whether I changed it from the wrong answer to the right answer, or the right answer to the wrong one. I don't know, but what I do know is there was some new information I saw in that question that completely changed my my response. So yeah, it was really interesting. So then I literally started breaking out into a sweat when I was ready to press that final button there. I was like, wow, this is about when it's done. This is not going to be easy, because I knew I had to press the button, or the timer was going to run out. So it was going to do it for me, I presume. I've never let the timer actually run out. I've usually stop the test after 5 minutes or less before it ends. I was like, okay, we're going to click the button. We're going to do it here. And as you probably all know, I got an 80%. So here's the so I was of course very happy. I was like, we're good. We're good. Let's take a breather. Let's take a break. We're good. I was very happy. But a couple of things that I noticed here is, first, I see that I struggled on the Magento core library. That was my biggest struggle. So I think if I remember correctly, that would have been, well, actually we could go look at it real quick just to make sure that we're giving good information here. That was objective 3. Yeah, so I know I definitely struggle with templating. I was like, I did not study that well enough, to be really frank. There were some questions about it, and I just had no clue. I knew some things about templating, but especially when comparing the different templating engines, I had no idea on that. So yeah, so it's basically how to work with, I think widgets and that sort of thing here in Magento. So I struggled with that. And looking back, I should have spent a little more time studying that. But it's also probably the area I have the least experience with. As I look at these scores here, I've done a lot with checkout, and so I feel really fairly confident with that. I've also done a good amount with UI components. So again, I feel confident. I just don't use the Magento core JavaScript library very much. I don't use it hardly at all. So that would be probably why. So yeah, so I think that was overall, I thought it was a really well written test. I thought it was challenging, but it wasn't overly difficult. So if we rank all Magento tests, so for example, we have the associate developer it would be the easiest. I'm not saying it's easy, but I would say it would be the easiest out of all 8. And then we have, say, number 8, the hardest would be probably the professional developer or the professional developer plus. I would put this as probably a 3 or 4 out of that ranking system, just because there were some really tricky things to know and to work through, but it really didn't seem too bad. A lot of these questions were really practical, so if you've done it before, you probably will easily get it, or if you studied this section really well, you'll probably easily get it. So yeah, that was the story of what I have worked through with the JavaScript. So kind of the retrospective of 3 months. And so I wanted to be able to share that with you, because to give you an encouragement that you can do it as well. You can do it. It's very, very possible. It might take you more than 3 months, and that's fine. It's not a problem. What matters is that you get past this test. And as well, not to worry if you do fail it. Remember, what I always say, thanks to a wonderful person by the name of Zig Ziglar, is that failure is an event. It is not a person. If you fail a test, if I would have failed JavaScript, I would have been so bummed. But I would say, it's okay. It's okay. I can continue this. I can do it. I'm going to study. I'm going to work on these areas. And in fact, let me back up here. If I would have failed this test, if I would have gotten a 50% here, what I would then do, and what I did actually for the test I failed last year. So I failed the cloud exam last year. What I would do is come back here and say, okay, let's say I got a 30% on this technology stack. I really need to brush up on that. So I would say, okay, what were those questions that were possibly like this, and like the technology stack? I could even read through the study guide. What were those questions? Try to bring those to the forefront of my mind. Instead of saying, okay, now we got to go find the right answer to these questions, because ultimately, and just to be really frank, you might not ever see those questions again. Magento rotates through a whole pool of these questions. What you should say is, okay, I am weak on this technology stack, so I need to work this out a little bit more. I need to edit it. I need to edit my understanding. I need to build on it. I need to build some examples. And that's probably the number one thing. If I could suggest this to anyone, you need to build out examples. Just like I have showed you in my code here. It's these examples. It's this proving of your knowledge. Even though these are so basic, I mean, ridiculously basic. And I would never ship these out in my code to a merchant. What it is it's proving these basic underlying concepts. And those concepts are what's so important. Very important in this situation and whatever you're doing. It's these concepts. So That's what I'm saying is the most important thing you possibly can do is get in there and learn that concept, brush up on it, that sort of thing. So any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to open up my associate developer project guide, because let me ask you this, eJazz, because I know you asked a question about Search Criteria Builder. Have you worked through the associate developer? Oops, might have just messed up my streaming here. We'll see if I did or not. Have you worked through the associate developer study guide? Let's see, what would be a better way to do this? Let's go back to JavaScript, actually, because that should be working okay. Okay, so yeah, so let me ask you that question. And 1 second here, let me display capture. Okay, there we go, we're back. Okay, so real quick on Search Criteria Builder. Let's say we have a, we're gonna add a product repository. This is in our controller. I am doing it here in this controller simply because this is the only class I had this window already configured for streaming. So please hardly ever, if ever, use a repository on a class in a controller. There's just almost no reason to ever do that. So I'm gonna go build this out, initialize property. All right, so and I have videos about how to do that. All right, so we have our product repository. So we want to get list. This product repository get list, and we see that it takes a search criteria interface. Search criteria builder, I think it uses the builder pattern. Let's see here, search criteria builder, and it basically, I'm going to initialize this property. There we go. Drop that down, clean this up a little bit. Okay, so search criteria builder basically is what generates the search criteria interface. Well, the implementation it creates a search criteria. Let's see, we'll say list equals, then we'll say criteria equals this search criteria builder. And now we have several methods we can call on this. So basically, once we're done with this, we can call create. And that will convert, so our search criteria builder, as we see right here, this is search criteria builder, it's going to convert it into a search criteria. And then we can pass that into here. Now, obviously, search criteria builder and search criteria classes are not compatible with each other. Obviously, a search criteria builder generates a search criteria instance. So obviously, we could, if we leave this create off, we'll see that this class type becomes incompatible. So search criteria builder provided, but search criteria interface is expected. So we don't want to do that. So with this, though, we have a couple of options. So we can add a filter or add filters. Add a filter. So we could say type ID is equal to, well, let's see here. So, and I like to use constants anytime possible. So we can do Magento catalog model to replace with alias, and we'll just call it product type simple. We can do add filter. We can add a sort order, so we can sort by entity. Well, no, that's right. We have to use a sort order builder. So that would be sort order builder. Let's see. There we go. Then we'll do this sort order builder. Set field entity ID, and then we call create. So basically, it's this builder idea. So we're taking this original. We're using this. It's kind of like almost like a construction site, if you will. So we have a builder. We're actually generating something, and then we take what was generated and we pass it into this requested method. So I would suggest, as you are unfamiliar with this, that you then look up the builder pattern, and I think that's what, if I remember correctly, that's what it's called. Look up the builder pattern and do some reading about that. And then the next step is to maybe take what you see here on my screen and step through the code for each one of this. And what you'll see here, like for example, add filter. It's using a filter builder in order to generate this filter that's going to be then applied to the collection. And one other thing to note is how these all work together. So we have add filters, which there's a way to, with the search criteria to create, I don't remember off the top of my head, to create an and or an or condition, which is really important. Sometimes you want to group stuff together with an and then separate it with an or, other parts with an or. So that's what all this does. And I can't remember exactly. I think filters. Wow. This is, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think each filter group is separated by an or, if I remember correctly. So yeah, that's what's important. So, and this is a great question. So please take this in the way I mean this. So your question, can we use add field to filter with this? Yes, you can, but no, I would recommend not. So add field to filter, I'm guessing you're familiar with. You've probably used it 100 times. But what I would suggest is to stop using it, to actually never use it for the next week. If any time it's available to use a repository, available or reasonable to use SearchCriteriaBuilder. Just because you're obviously not familiar with it, but what the number one thing that you need is to become familiar with it. You need to check that unfamiliarity at the door and say, I am going to take the next half an hour, even once we're done here, take the next half an hour, I'm going to build out a scenario just like I'm building out right here. And I'm not familiar with how this works, but I'm going to reverse that today. It's going to be done today. I will be an expert at using SearchCriteriaBuilder today or Monday, whenever it is. I will become an expert at this. So and one other thing to note is we never want to use a product repository for like iterating through products unless we absolutely have to. And the reason is product repository loads all attributes versus a product collection can load specific attributes. I do hope that'll change in the future, but for right now, you don't have a way. I'm not aware of a way to filter down the number of attributes that is loaded on a product repository, which can make it very slow, very, very slow. So just keep that in mind. Michele asked, which tool am I using to initialize DI variables automatically in the constructor? Great. I actually, just so you are aware, I have a 60-second video on our YouTube channel about how to do that, but let me show you this. So let's say filter builder. I type that in, hit enter, and then I'll just, I can autocomplete. So I move my arrow key over to get into the variable name. And then I press, so I'm on Mac. I'm not sure if that changes for Windows. I press alternate enter. Alternate enter. I hit the down arrow key several times. Don't use the mouse ever if possible. And then I hit enter again. Down arrow key to select filter builder. So I'm going to initialize this property, hit enter, and it creates this. So I can use its alternate shift up arrow key to put this in its place. And then I don't know why I've changed. Okay, just a little personal preference of mine. I don't use the standard what Magento uses anymore. That just gets so tall. It can make those class headers become so long. So I changed it out to be this, but the problem is I can't get a new line to appear between them. So I have to still go up and add this in. So, yeah, so that's how I do it. So great. I'm glad that answered your question. And alternate enter. Thank you, Alessandro, for clarifying that on Linux too. So I guess the last one is Windows. Ejaz, finally a question or another question here about catalog attributes. No, unfortunately, catalog attributes.xml does not create it. It can help load it into a collection. It will not, though. Like for example, when a quote is loaded up, the products are initialized in that quote, and it can load in extra attributes there, but it will not actually load in attributes. It will not actually create a new attribute. You have to do that in a data patch, not a setup script, but a data patch. Very, very important. We're working on 2.3, folks, so let's not use any 2.2 features if they're there, unless I guess if we're a module developer, that might be a different story. Good morning, Bamboos. That's great to see you. So, any other questions? I am more than happy to answer questions here. We have just a few minutes left as we are wrapping up this live stream, and it's been really great. And I'll throw this out there. I say this occasionally, just so you know, I am not the pushy marketing type person that's constantly begging you for likes and subscribes. That's just not me. But it does take a lot of investment in pulling this together. And last night I was up till midnight doing a meetup for a friend. And so then here, get up at I got 6.5 hours of sleep. So my goal, my goal is to equip you to become Magento certified. And I'm really, really passionate about that. So as you have if you're willing to, it makes a massive difference for me. It really keeps me motivated when I see if you like this. It helps me know what content you like, as I want to put out material information that you do find really, really helpful. So if you wouldn't mind clicking the like, if you would mind subscribing to our channel, that all of that is really, really motivational to me. Oh, and just so you know, man, I don't get annoyed by questions at all. So what I do want is to help you to point you in the right direction, because that's something, and I see this pattern over and over and over again. So I get passionate about that. I see this pattern that we stick with the 20% of knowledge, or the 40% of knowledge, or the 50% of knowledge that we know. And usually that gets us by. It usually makes it, we can get stuff done with that. But with the efficiencies that we gain when breaking out of that 50% of knowledge, when the efficiencies we gain, how much better and quicker we're able to solve problems. Let me give you a quick story here. And I intend to build out some more information on this very subject. We've kind of been second level support for a merchant who's working with a less expensive, and I don't think we're that expensive anyways, but a less expensive company. This other company launched a couple of weeks ago, launched Magento 2.3.4 on their site. They using even a totally different deployment method, etc. Well, it came down to there was a problem. And actually, let me show this to you. This is so fascinating. And I want to just take a moment to help to show you how this stuff really does make a difference. Let's see here. Check out model session. So the error that they were getting was here in this session. What? Am I not running 2.3.4? I am not running 2.3.4. Okay. Where would I be running 2.3.4? Well, okay. I'll just put it this way. There was basically an error thrown here. Let's see here. Throw new exception. It wasn't exactly like this. But infinite loop detected. So their whole website was down. They didn't know how to resolve this problem. And it was down for at least an hour. They called me and they said, hey, we need to get this resolved. So this area of troubleshooting and breaking outside your box is so important. And this is where I've talked about the value of certifications. And it's not like a certification will say, here's how to fix this problem, but certifications give you this knowledge of other ways to do things. So what I ended up doing, it was on a mutable file system, so I could actually go in and change this core code. What I did was because I couldn't replicate this locally, if they said it worked fine on staging, problem started happening on production. So what I ended up doing is I was able to go wrap this in a logging method. For example, so catch, it was a specific exception type. And then this very handy method, get trace as string, and I was able to log that out. So I was able to see exactly the call stack for this particular infinite loop that was detected and shut down the entire checkout process. And as a result, I was able to get to the bottom of that within, I think it was an hour to get it totally resolved. So I got in, I figured it out, and had this problem resolved within an hour. Where these other people, they were trying, they could not figure out how to get this resolved. So the more experience you get as you take deep dives on these different areas, you're going to learn these tricks. And this is where your value will increase. This is where as you get certified, and this is what I tell people, is you get certified, your paycheck may or may not increase tomorrow. I hope it does. I really hope it does. But from what my experience is, your paycheck will increase a little. But over the course of the next year, the course of the next 2 years, as you continue to learn, as you continue to study, maybe get more certifications, what you're going to find is the value you contribute back to your company will significantly increase. So your pay might be just a little bit. You might get a little bit extra every test, hopefully. But what you're going to find is as you contribute massive extra value to your company, you'll be able to go back and negotiate higher salaries because they're going to see, wow, you're able to get stuff solved faster. You're making our merchants happier. You're able to answer questions quicker. Your value that you contribute to the company massively and exponentially increases. So it's not as a direct result of the certifications, but it's as a direct result of your study, as your investment back into yourself for your learning. So that was a little bit of a long story. It was kind of a little trick that I wanted to share with you all. But all of that to say, I hope you all keep working really hard at these certifications. We have a couple of weeks left. We have one more meeting left in this 2020 certification challenge. So I hope that I see a whole bunch of test scores coming in here in the next couple of weeks. Any other final questions before we wrap this up today? Any other questions? My pleasure. It has been wonderful. Thank you for coming on, Jawad. Great having you here. And hey, I hope to see your certification scores come through here in a little bit with a pass. I want to see a pass on there because I know you can do it. Okay, good question. Because yes, Michele asked about how important is theory versus practice. I would probably suggest they're about 50-50. And that's why I don't think one would just pass the associate developer test by just the project guide. I think you also will have to pass the test. To pass the test, you'd have to read the study guide too. Just because the theory is really important. It's a little more broad. It gives you more jumping off points. But the project guide, as an example here, is designed to get you very specific, practical knowledge about something. So, I'm going to suggest they're about 50-50. So, of course, you couldn't pass the test without any practical experience, but also you do need that theory. You do need that information as far as how to be able to get that test. So, I know it's not probably as helpful as you want. We're hoping to hear there, but so theory is important. That's why you read the study guide, but also the practical experience is really important. That's why you go build out. That's why you research. That's why you dig into these areas that still seem a little bit fuzzy, a little bit nebulous for you. Very good. All right. Oh, good. Jawad's going to give his test in associate exam in 2 weeks. You can do it. Make sure, Jawad, don't forget about the project guide. And if you are interested in the study guide, of course, if you don't want to pay for this, our study guide, Magento U has a free study guide. So that should be helpful. So anyways, listen, my friends, it has been great to be with you all today. I always am motivated, always excited to be here to hang out with you all. I hope you have a wonderful day. Much study. And remember, while we have this corona debacle, all this crazy stuff going on, we're all separated socially. We don't get to see our friends that we usually get to see regularly. All our meetups are canceled. The conferences are canceled. Well, like Imagine's now canceled, or Adobe Summit. That's all canceled. I'm really bummed. But let's take this time as an opportunity to be able to work together, even if it's remotely, and see what we can do to get these tests, certifications passed. So yes, while it's a bummer that we're not able to hang out together in person, let's use this as an opportunity to invest back in ourselves so that next time we hang out together in person, you're going to have some real serious credentials behind your name. Oh, one final question. Niha, welcome. Come on. I didn't remember seeing you here earlier. So, PWA and MFTF are not on the test at this point. Probably will be in the future. I'd be surprised on MFTF, but the functional testing. But the PWA, I understand we'll have a test on in the future. It's just not ready for a test to be built around it yet because it's still very much changing and being built out. Anyways, my friends, it was great having you as a part of this today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, whether it's all day like me, or if it's just a little bit, maybe if you're in India. So you have just a little bit left in the day. So either way, hope you have a wonderful day. I look forward to 2 weeks from today when we're going to wrap this whole thing up, and we are going to call it the end of the 2020 Magento, or the 2020 certification challenge to get Magento certified. Take care, and we will see you next time.